Chapter 8 Ghost Ship. It had been a frustrating week of sailing since putting the Grantrillia continent to their stern. Storms and unforgiving headwinds had forced many navigational errors and adjustments. One morning, Zale found that they had yawed too far to the east, as though towards Skaard, a discovery that turned him pink with rage.
"Are we helmed by Murdoch's mates," he fumed, "or some pack of slack-witted chowderheads?"
Typically, their greatest variances occurred while the helm was under the watch of Jensen or Tate. Even seasoned sailors rarely stayed perfectly on course when the elements got rough. Still, Zale found his patience with Jensen running especially thin as they made one course correction after another.
"Jensen!"
he shouted one morning. Jensen jolted such that Zale wondered if he'd been asleep against the wheel.
"Are we sailing for Gukan or Whiteland?" Zale asked. "Stop blubber-potting around and sort your bearings!"
Part of the time they made great progress, catching the wind just right. Other times, with the crew simply too spent, they were forced to be calm for intervals that felt like an eternity. They plodded along via oars as much as they could, but it was slow going. They hadn't spotted Seadread's ship, the Iron Mermaiden, for days. The notion that Rummy had outmaneuvered them galled at what few nerves Zale had remaining. Zale emerged from his cabin that morning, coffee mug in hand, to a heavy covering of sea fog.
"Beep!"
"Morning, Captain,"
Casper said from the quarterdeck above.
"How long have we been in this fog?"
"Probably not even an hour yet. I've been double-checking our,
Timbers creaked and yelps resounded as the entire ship blistered toward larboard. The ship vibrated and groaned for a short turn until balancing back out. Zale managed to grab a staircase railing but lost his coffee to the deck.
"Oh, that's just great!"
"Maybe it's just me," said Yancey, "but I think we hit something." Zale met him along the starboard railing. Thump pointed beyond. "I see land out there." Zale spun around to face Casper.
"Quick! Beep! Shift to larboard! Crew, keep a watch on all sides for shoals and sandbanks! Reef the sail and slow ahead! We'll not run her aground, men!"
Dippy appointed several deckhands for the watch on both sides of the ship and at the prow, after which he rejoined the captain. "Did we catch a massive tailwind throughout the night?" Zale asked.
"Not that much,"
Dippy said.
"By our reckoning, we should still be at least a day or two away from Gukan's shores."
Zale rubbed at his chin whiskers. "Vidimir told us he'd lost ships among islets near their destination. Best we review the situation. Officers, including Fulgur, to my cabin." He started off but turned on one final thought. "Except for Chim, see that the ship's weapons are loaded and ready for quick action." "Aye, Captain," Chim replied. Minutes later, Dippy, Yancey, Casper, Yvette, and Fulgur gathered in Zale's cabin. Casper spread one of his maps out upon the table and pressed his finger upon an area of water south of Gukan.
"We should be right about here. If we're seeing land, it's uncharted."
"Vidimir mentioned this to us in the tavern," said Zale. "Now's the time to be sharp and ready. We're in hostile waters, and enemy ships could spring at any time," ventured Yancey. Zale's eyes shifted to the scale of the map. 1 inch equals 10 miles. "What is it, Captain?" Yvette asked. "Fulgur, that clue from your order. Do those who give an inch a mile is given in return?" "That's correct, as with decuped generosity." Zale tapped the scale of the map. "Tenfold. Give 1 inch and receive 10 miles. Fulgur's mouth went agape. "A map scale!" The others in the room exchanged uncertain glances.
"A map scale?"
Dippy asked.
"Sir, I don't think we're following you."
Zale reached toward Fulgur. "Give me your drawing." Fulgur handed it over, and Zale took it with the map over to the nearest window pane. Our most efficacious spiritual guide happens to have information from an ancient order pertaining to the Grimstone. He laid the map against the window. The sunlight shining through was dim from the fog, but still enough. He carefully lined Fulger's drawings up over the map. It was still only a vague clue. Until now. Fulger rushed toward Zale.
The drawing overlays your map perfectly. The pointed structure lies about 15 miles inland. This irregular line on the drawing isn't a path at all. It's a river.
Zale nodded. It's a river flowing from the southern coast, thus accessible from the southern side of the island.
And visible from the water. Not the ocean, but rather this river. Amazing!
Casper stepped toward the map.
And these other shapes down below. These must be the islets.
Charted after mainland Gukan, Fulger said. He met eyes with Zale. Charted only by those of legend. So, now we know where the Grimstone is located? Asked Fump. That's awesome! Zale rubbed his hands together, pleased with his discovery. Not only that, but Fulger had contributed a valuable resource. Zale remained wary of the man's intentions, but this was a good step toward Fulger proving his worth.
Sir, may I?
Casper stepped up and reversed the pages, so that his map was on top. Using a pencil, he traced the shapes onto his map.
I'd better get this out there. If I'm seeing this right, we're bound to plow headfirst into a strip of land.
Someone frantically rang the bell outside. "Captain!" shouted one of the men. Everyone rushed outside. Zale was surprised to see Jensen at the bell. "Sir!" Jensen yelled. "Seadred's ship is upon us!" "Sweet birth of Besleab," Zale muttered as he saw the dark form of a ship looming up ahead.
Hands to the crossbows and ballista!
"On it, Captain!" shouted Rosh, who was already dashing to and fro about the deck, dropping extra bolts to the wood with a clatter.
Everyone, take up arms! Make ready to subdue the bastards if they try to board! Zale roared.
The ship was remarkably close, and it was coming toward them at their larboard side.
Take cover where you can and prepare to shoot if they make hostile.
Zale fully expected Captain Rummy to take the first shot of dishonor at another Tuscanese vessel, and he was all too willing to return the favor. On a whim, he turned to Jensen. "Jensen, please see that my daughter is safe and protected."
Yes, sir.
Jensen grabbed a sword and went below. Seadred's dark two-masted ship drew extremely close.
At the ready, men! Zale shouted, expecting an onslaught.
Everything went quiet, utterly still. Zale watched from midship, already certain his eyes were playing tricks. The deck of Seadred's ship was completely empty. There was not a soul to be seen. Not on the rigging, not at the rails, not upon the forecastle or stern. Not even at the wheel. From the horrid-faced, screaming, bare-chested mermaid prow all the way to aft, the Iron Mermaiden was as a ghost ship. Ropes from the ship's sailyards flung unnaturally back and forth. Bolstered by long-seasoned instinct, Zale drew his saber. "Captain, keep low," Fulger whispered urgently. "Something here is much afoul." No truer statement could have been spoken. In the muffled, foggy daylight, Zale saw the nervous shuffling of his crew. There was a disturbance about the fog that made his hackles rise, and subtle whispers of movement that didn't match with the men he saw. He looked again at Seadred's ship, the swinging ropes, the taut, steady braces of its sails, and the wheel. Deftly, he aimed his glass at the ship's helm. "By the light," he muttered, "their wheel is not lashed, yet the ship is holding steady." A few men at the rails shuffled,
the sort of move a person might make when another is passing close behind. Soft thumps resounded throughout the deck. Zale's instinct swelled through his body like an alarm.
Look alive, men. We're being boarded.
Zale shed his coat and dropped it before his cabin door. His sword arm would have greater freedom of movement without it. Crewmen spun about, flinging into the disturbed air around them, and soon found it to be more than wispy fog. "Grimkins!" someone cried. Grapnels launched from the other ship, snagging in the ratlines of the Queenie. Several of the black-feathered humanoids known as Grimkins swung across, screeching through their beaked mouths like deranged eagles.
"We've got more incoming!"
shouted Rosh, hacking away one of the hooks. "They've disguised themselves using burn light absorption!" shouted Fulgur, pulling his Novidian Annales. Screams of pain pierced the air from men stabbed. As though shedding invisible cloaks, one by one the Grimkins showed themselves, like feathered demons dressed in dark tunics. There were perhaps 20 of them. Angry screeches trilled from their beaks as they wielded curved, wicked blades. Steely clangs and shouts of battle replaced the stillness of moments before. Murdoch's mates sprang into action, parrying with swords and axes Thump had furnished throughout the deck. Thump himself was a two-fisted, devilish fighter. With a sharp roar, he launched a hatchet into the skull of one Grimkin and turned to crack the beak of another with a mace. He plunged a hand into a pocket of his trousers and flung a handful of sand into the face of another Grimkin. As it screeched, holding its eyes, Thump drew a dirk. A flash of silver later, the feathered Cretan fell to the deck. Fulgur confounded his foes with the blazing white light of the Novidian Annales. But his counterattacks became more than mere dueling. Zale did a double-take as Fulgur pointed his dagger toward the sky. With a flare of white energy, he drew several of the enemy weapons into his own like a magnet and cast them overboard. He turned another Grimkin's weapon against it, jabbing it through the chest with only subtle movements of his own. Shrew and her oarsmen had taken up swords. Yvette grunted and yelled with each strike. She was strong, deft, and sure-footed. Indeed, one of the more capable fighters Zale had ever crewed. Even Wigglebelly was caught in the action, swinging a heavy bludgeon with the sort of proficiency only a master of the rolling pin could muster. Zale laid into one assailant with swift, powerful blows. Rather than fancy footwork, Zale was known for the proficiency and strength of his saber handling. He backed his opponent into the larboard rail, eventually whacking away the Grimkin's sword. He lunged forward and pushed into the Grimkin with all his girth, sending it to the depths with a panicked screech. "Captain!" Fulgur dragged Murdoch back by the arm. Somewhere just behind, Beat reeled a captive Grimkin over the quarterdeck balcony with a grappling hook, preparing to heave it overboard like a bad catch. "I'll have these curs mounted for decoration," Zale spat in a fervor. He shook Fulgur off. "Every one of their vile heads on a pike." "Captain, you must get out of sight," Fulgur shouted. "Are you mad? I won't leave my crew in a fight." "Sir, it might be you they're after. The ancestor of Macpherson, the key to the Grimstone." "I'm not going anywhere," Zale growled. Fulgur pointed his dagger toward a fallen Grimkin sword and guided it through the air straight into another enemy downship. "Then we shall do everything to protect you." "There's more of them!" Dippy shouted. More Grimkins were now visible aboard the deck of Seadread's ship, a fresh swarm making for the ropes before the ship passed out of range. "Get on those crossbows!" Zale ordered. "Beep! For Yilo's sake! Full speed ahead!" Rosh's hand was already on one of the 4 larboard crossbow triggers. He took aim with his one arm, pulled and launched the bolt straight into a Grimkin on the other ship. He snatched up another bolt from the deck, loaded, aimed, and fired, felling another foe. It was a fluid motion, the sort of moment he was born for. "Damn near a form of art, him at that," said Thump. A Grimkin feather stuck in his fiery hair. "Hook knee!" Rosh called to one of his mates. "Hands on the aft ballista! We'll send them a final sting after they pass by!"
Even though all 4 crossbows were now in use, and feathery carcasses were filling the sea between them, there were too many Grimkins that remained. They flung themselves to the ropes, at least 10 per group. Zale shambled to the nearest crossbow, took aim, and speared one of the Grimkins midair. Still, by his best guess, at least 7 landed successfully. All of them turned toward Murdoch. They sprinted his direction with ear-splitting squawks. Several from his crew tried to intercept them, successfully taking down one here and another there. Most of his men, however, were still dealing with other Grimkins already aboard the ship. Zale stamped the deck defiantly and stood his ground. "Challenge me, will you?" He lashed out with the fury of many men, parrying and dodging their blades. It seemed they were taking some care in their strikes. Fulgur might be right, he realized. They don't want to damage their quarry. One swung low, thumping against his graphenite leg ineffectually. That one Zale kicked in the head with concussive force. 3 of the Grimkins managed to grapple him from behind. He struggled against them, his hat falling to the deck. They forced away his saber and dragged him toward the rail. "Unhand me, you quill-headed twits!" 2 more Grimkins landed from Seadred's ship and gave their ropes to Zale's captors. "Captain!" shouted Fump. "No!" cried Rosh. "The birds, man! The birds!" squealed Wigglebelly. It was the last thing Zale heard before the Grimkins leaped and swung him from his ship. Zale stumbled backward to the dark timbers of Seadred's deck after a rough landing with his Grimkin captors. All around him, Grimkins shuffled about and chittered in their strange native language. "What happened here? Did you animals overtake Captain Rummy's crew?" A door slammed. He turned toward the captain's cabin and saw none other than Garrick Rummy himself. The pockmarked, pale-faced captain approached with long, unhurried steps, his churchwarden's pipe hanging loosely from his lips. He fitted a black, shabby hat upon the black hair of his head and stroked at his white, scraggly beard. "You!" Zale shouted. "You treacherous ratbag! You'll have much to answer for after attacking a fellow vessel of Tuscany."
Zale, always the one for honor and decorum. Where's the honor in defeat,
"Fool! My crew will stop at nothing to retrieve me." Seadred shrugged, maintaining a smug grin.
"Oh, your crew will be dead. An unfortunate hazard of the job, I'm afraid."
He nodded to one of the Grimkins.
"Time for lights out."
The Grimkin raised its arm with a series of squawking sounds, and easily a dozen of the creatures lined up against the larboard rail. They made strange motions with their hands, something Zale counted as faintly familiar. Purple flames appeared in the air before them. Once kindled, the Grimkins shot the death-cold fireballs straight for the Queenie. "Dark fire!" Zale roared. He pushed his way toward the attacking Grimkins, but was immediately clotheslined by another one standing nearby. The hard fall knocked the air from his lungs. He sat back up, gasping, and heard the anguished cries from his ship. The gap between them had widened, such that no one could swing across, and Seadred's grapnels had been cut loose. He felt some brief solace when 2 Grimkins fell to crossbow fire. Then a particularly long bolt, unmistakably from their aft ballista, speared 3 Grimkins at once. They fell overboard, a feathery skewer for the sharks. He faintly saw the light of Fulgur's dagger as he scrambled to deal with the dark-fire attacks.
"Now, Zale," spoke Rummy, "I think you know what we're needing you for. Retrieve us the Grimstone, and we'll give you quarter. That is, we'll spare your life. All the bounty goes to me."
"How stupid do you think I am?" Zale shot back. I'm not helping you with anything.
Seadred scowled deeply. Don't be meddling with me, Murdoch. You're the most convenient solution, to be sure, but you're plenty expendable. All we really need is your bloodline.
Zale's widened eyes betrayed him, his worst fear confirmed. Somehow Seadred knew that all he needed was the bloodline of Macpherson. Fulgur had been right.
Yes, we know, Seadred said.
Stop the attack on my crew and swear to spare them. Seadred reared back his head.
I really don't think so.
Listen to me. I don't know where the Grimstone is located. I never knew about any of this until recently. But we might have just discovered how to map it, and that information is still on board my ship.
What am I to do, Zale? Just swing you back to your deck all friendly-like, hoping we're all in this together now?
You'll have to get us within shouting range under colors of ceasefire, Zale said. I'll order my men to stand down. You'll do the same. Send one of your minions over to retrieve the map, and I'll order my ship to put Gukhan to its rudder, no looking back. Once we've won you the Grimstone, Rummy, you'll deliver me safely back to Orvonia. Seadred stared back at Zale for long moments. Finally, he called out,
Belay your fire!
He stomped hard upon the deck, and a man down below opened a hatch.
Morland, raise the white and bring us back around.
Zale was relieved to see the Grimkins forego their onslaught, although he was distraught to see large purple flames still licking up the side of his ship. He could only hope Fulgur and his mates would be able to deal with it as they had after leaving Morvonia's harbor, before it was too late. Men, his actual human crew, slovenly as they were, ascended from the deck below to follow Seadred's orders. As they worked the salyards and wheeled to turn the ship, Zale chewed his lip nervously. He had bought them some time, but Rummy still had the upper hand, and the survival of everyone, including his daughter, now hung in an extremely delicate balance. Suddenly the ship lurched from starboard.
What is that?
Seadred demanded. Zale chanced to peek over the edge. A black longship filled with oarsmen had rammed them from below. There were nearly 36 men in the boat, uniformed all in black with conical hats.
We are Gukhan!
Boomed a voice from below, amplified as though through a large megastone funnel.
You will surrender or be destroyed!
If the Gukhanians boarded the ship, Zale would likely be treated the same as Seadred's crew, despite being their prisoner. To the Gukhanians, they were all outsiders, and outsiders were not welcome. Still, Zale wondered if he could take advantage of the distraction. Seadred snarled at the intrusion.
Sink that ship and send 'em all to the fathoms, or they might alert the mainland. Set the oil to boiling. Ready pitch and torches.
The orders were brutal and largely faithful to Seadred's present course of aggression. Zale had much preferred the approach of stealth rather than waging battle in hostile foreign waters. Seadred's deck became a flurry of men and Grimkins as they moved to deal swiftly with this new threat. Zale suspected the Gukhanians would not be so easy to subdue as Seadred hoped. Glancing toward the Queenie, it seemed the Darkfire was being contained. As far as he could tell, there were no other ships of Gukhan about. His chance was now or never. He made for the larboard beam and practically threw himself into one of the rowboats. He landed awkwardly between the benches, his girth nearly crushing his arm. Ignoring the pain, he moved as fast as he could to pulley the boat downward. As soon as he hit the water, he set to the oars and heaved toward his ship, pushing through heavily belabored breaths and the sweat of exertion. Leaving Seadred's ship undetected, in one of the captain's own boats no less, had been nothing short of a miracle. He relished this with a smile as he motivated his loath, stubborn body to push toward the goal. He dared to believe he just might make it. A black longship crossed in front of his rowboat, as though materializing out of the shadows, and turned him aside. Without so much as a grunt, the sailors of Gukhan pulled him into the boat and opened a small wooden box right before his nose.
A thick steam puffed into his face, sparking a hint of recognition. Narcotic mist stones, before his body wavered into unconsciousness.